I have a question today that I want you to give some thought to. And that question is, are you a hostage to love? A love hostage. What does that mean? Well, first of all, how is love supposed to feel? Love is supposed to feel that you're free to be yourself. You're appreciated, seen, valued, even when you're disagreed with or people aren't on the same page as you. There's a mutual respect as a foundation, a trust for one another that we both have each other's best interest at heart. There's a level of healthy communication, especially in disagreements. There's this feeling of being seen and accepted and valued, right? So, how does this go awry? Well, when we're in a relationship that is toxic or dysfunctional, we start to get the wrong idea about what love is, and we confuse or conflate love with pain. In fact, many times people start to even believe love is pain. And that's a really sad state to be in, where you convince yourself that in order to have love or to be loved, that it must be accompanied by some level of psychological, emotional, financial, or physical discomfort in order for it to be love. And this isn't a new idea. This idea that love is suffering is an old idea that even is passed down through religion, that in order to be really loved, you must suffer. And God loves you so much that God suffered so much. And so we start to really believe this paradigm and we go into our lives thinking, well, if God had to suffer like that in order to show love, then surely I must put up with the things that I'm putting up with so I can be more godly or like God. Well, I'm here to tell you I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe that love is suffering at all. I think that people are loving and they're born of love and they show love. And the people who can't handle all that love do everything in their power to stop that love, kill that power, or crucify that love. And so love is not the killing, love is not the hurt, love is not the pain. That is the response of people who are unloving to love. That is a hateful response. That is the opposite response to love. It's not part of love. It is the response of other people who don't know what to do with that love or don't know how to handle that love. So they reject it, crucify it, and kill it. And maybe you have been in a position like that with somebody that you've been trying to love, trying your best to love, pouring all your resources into, being kind, being overly patient, being consistent, doing all the things, and you on a daily basis or a perpetual basis are being crucified for that, being treated the opposite and thinking, well, that's what love is. Love is a sacrifice, love is torture, love is torment. Bullshit. None of those things are true. Love is the opposite of those things. So I'm going to give you 8 key indicators that you are a hostage to love. And I'm going to say it in a way that is pretty everyday plain language where you can kind of see your situation. Now, how I've come up with these 8 different signature ways to show that you're in a hostage situation is through just decades of work, decades of studying toxic relationships, complicated relationships with people that are in love with or loving an addict, an alcoholic, a narcissist, or have grown up in an environment where they've had to be loving and consistently loving to somebody who was hurting them over time. And what we do as a response to that is we develop these ways of coping with people who are unloving, and we take on a personality and a way to become so that we can be less hurt, essentially. What these are toxic attachment patterns. I call them codependent toxic attachment patterns. You can go over to my site, HeidiRain.com, where I've developed a test. It takes about 15 minutes for you to discover if you are running one of these toxic attachment patterns in your own relationships. And in fact, you are a hostage to love instead of really a participant in the most loving relationship that you truly deserve and desire. So the good news is these patterns are patterns, not pathology. It's a way of adapting to an unloving environment and morphing and bending into who you need to be versus actually just showing up as your authentic self and being seen and loved and appreciated and valued and respected and yeah, valued ultimately. Uh, That instead of that, we feel like we have to bend and morph and be who we need to be. So the first indicator that you are a I love hostage instead of in a healthy, beautiful relationship is that you're being controlled or you find that you're controlling another human being. So either you're with somebody who is attempting to tell you how to think, feel, behave, or see things. And as long as you see those things the way that you're being told to see them, or you agree with the person that is showing you the view of life that you're supposed to take on and adapt with them, then everything is fine. You're playing by the person's rules. And there's a lot of eggshells in this type of behavior, where as long as you're playing by the rules and you are being the pleaser to this person's controlling nature, and you're doing everything the right way and seeing things the right way. And as soon as you start to protest or have a differing or varying opinion of how things are supposed to be or how things are in your own mind, then that person takes their love away. That's a hostage. That's a hostage to love where I need to perform a certain way in order for you to love and care about me. Now, you might be thinking, well, oh my gosh, maybe I'm doing that to somebody. Maybe I'm in a relationship with an addict and alcoholic and I am controlling them and expecting them to be sober in order for me to love them. And I'm dangling that carrot and I'm controlling their behavior and they're pleasing me. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you could be holding a hostage yourself. Holding a hostage, are you either, taking hostages or you are a hostage in this situation of a toxic dynamic where it does take two people. And you might think, well, I think I'm doing them a favor, Heidi, by holding them hostage because I see their truest potential. I see the person that they can become. I know that if they're sober, they're going to have this beautiful, wonderful life. And so I'm just, keeping my love, all of my love over here. And if they can do the dance and behave the way that I want them to behave, then all that love's going to be available to them. Did you ever notice that no matter how much you try to cajole them, convince them, persuade them, manipulate them, encourage them, or control them into behaving the way that you want them to behave for you, they just never do it? That's a hostage situation. Not because that person is unwilling to do what you're asking them to do, but 9 times out of 10, that person is incapable of asking you to do what you wanna do what you want them to do for you. Meaning there's it's not you're asking them to love you a certain way, to see you, to value you, to appreciate you, to respect you, to all these things, and this is so you want them to love you, right? But this is a person who has no concept or clue what love is because they're still hurting themselves on purpose or on accident. So a person that is constantly hurting themselves through self-sabotage and doesn't know how to love themselves has absolutely no business or has no idea how to love you. So you have a hostage. You have a hostage to love. Well, you're supposed to love me this way. Well, they haven't even figured out how to do it internally yet. How in the heck are they supposed to learn to do it externally? Many of us have to learn to release our hostages. Now you might be in the same boat. You might say, "Well, I think I'm a hostage." Okay, I think somebody else is controlling me and expecting me to behave. Narcissistic parents hold their children hostage. You need to see me a certain way. That narcissistic parent will say to the kid, see me in a positive light at all costs. See me as an altruistic person, a caring person, a loving person. And the minute you might say to that narcissistic parent, well, wait a minute. It feels like you love me as long as I'm playing by your rules. But the minute I see you in a different way, or I have a differing opinion of you, or I have a boundary I want to set with you, or I have a thought about how you're treating me, you take your love away and blame me. Well, and then you go into the victim, like the narcissistic parent will, the vulnerable narcissist, right? Well, oh, I guess I'm the worst parent ever, and you just don't love me, and I just can never do enough, and you never think about the good times, and you never think about everything I always do for you. And now here we are, and you're telling me that, I'm the bad guy. Okay, I guess I'm the bad guy. That's a hostage to love. In a healthy relationship, you're able to tell somebody, hey, when you treat me this way, this is what the effect it has on me. This is how I feel. This is what I'm thinking whenever you behave this way and you're around me. And a healthy person takes it in and says, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that to you. I'm so sorry that I'm putting you in that position. I don't want you to feel that way. Let me look at my behavior because love says that it's not just me, my perception of how I'm loving you, but it's your perception of how you're being loved as well. And if I think I'm being loving, but you're telling me I'm actually hurting you, then I need to look at that and I need to take that in. I gotta say, "Well, this is just the way that it is, take it or leave it. Well, this is how I show you love. I show you love by being overly involved, controlling, in your life, up your ass, whatever it is." Well, honey, that's not love to me. Love meets people where they are and loves how other people wanna be loved, not how I think you should wanna be loved or how I wanna be loved, right? Love sees the other person and says, "Well, I look at you and I see, wow, I notice, this is how you feel most loved. This is how I can, help you, um, see the beauty in yourself, not the beauty I think you're supposed to show me or how I think you're supposed to behave." So controlling and pleasing is a dynamic that is 2 hostages inside of a toxic relationship. Another dynamic of a hostage situation is a withholding situation, which looks a lot like a controlling situation. So, as a controller, I tell you outright how to think, feel, but I also take control of the situation. And as a controlling person, I find myself doing it. I'll take over. I'll do it myself. I'll be in the middle of something and trust you to do it and say, "Well, you don't know how what you're doing, so I'll just take it over." Like, let's say there's a family trip planned and the people are like, "Oh, we wanna have the best time ever, we wanna have the best experience." A controlling person will just run that thing and take it over and tell everybody what we're doing. At this time, we're doing this, at this time, we're doing that, and everybody needs to be there, and when nobody's there, they're pissed off, they're upset, they're devastated, they're trying to and I used to be this person. I used to want to have a Hallmark Christmas so badly. My sister and I just talked about this recently, where one year, I just, having such a dysfunctional life and childhood, I always had this vision of like how the holidays were supposed to go. So I would orchestrate them out of my mind. And I would think, okay, well, so and so is going to arrive at this time. And then we're going to sit down and then we're going to open presents and they're going to go first. And then we're going to have dinner and everybody's going to have dessert. And then we're going to watch a holiday movie and we're all going to sit around and have this our hot chocolate or our hot toddies or whatever that it is. And everybody's going to behave and nobody's going to make any problems and controlling the situation. And when people wouldn't behave that way, I would overreact. And one Christmas in particular, my sister and I just got into this huge blow up fight because I was so irate that people were not behaving how I needed them to behave so I could experience love the way I wanted to experience it. Okay. So a controller will dive in, will yell, will cause a scene, will take over. And that's how I used to behave. While a withholder will just pack up their toys and go home. So a withholder in that situation has planned everything out and nobody's participating the way that they want them to participate. So they'll just disappear, go up in their room, shut it down, party's over, everyone go home, take all the toys away from myself and everybody else and just get out of Dodge and just give up and they'll disappear. A withholder takes it all away. And that is a toxic behavior. That is a hostage situation. Well, I'm going to take all my love away. I'm going to take all myself away, all my presence away, all my, gifts and love and support, encouragement, all those things away. And I'm going to get out of here. And some of you might be thinking, well, Heidi, isn't that a boundary? Isn't that a good thing that you just take all your resources and get out of Dodge? No, because you're punishing yourself in the process. That's not setting a boundary. That's not setting a boundary with yourself. That's punishing yourself. When you're up in your room, tormented, listening to sad songs, journaling about how fucked up everybody is downstairs and how much you can't have a good life and how everything's terrible. And meanwhile, you're withholding joy from yourself as well. You're a hostage to your own pattern in that moment. A hostage to love, a love hostage to a pattern of withholding from yourself. When somebody do you ever do that? When somebody doesn't give you what you want or you're dating somebody new or you're in a relationship and they don't text you or they don't respond to you or they don't even wanna see you again, they say, "Oh, you know what? This just really I just don't feel like it's a good fit or a good match or whatever," and immediately you then shut it all down. You take off your profile offline, you shut everything off, you shut off affection from yourself, you don't let anybody talk to you anymore, you're just like, take all your toys and go home, and you withhold all the love from yourself, or you isolate, and start to tell yourself the story, "Well, you don't deserve love anyway, and you probably screwed that up, and you're not worth it," and you go into this tirade of bad, horrible language to yourself, and you withhold what you need most in that moment, which is, "Oh my gosh, thank God, dodged a bullet there. We're not meant to be." And he saw it quicker. Thank God. Next. "Ah, I'm so gorgeous. I just gonna wait for the next one to come along because I know that's gonna," and you are. It's not a matter of how you physically show up. Some people are more genetically blessed than other people, which by the way isn't a good thing. That's just genetics. That has nothing to do with you. And a little bit of drag maybe, right? Like RuPaul says, we're all born naked and everything else is drag, but we are all beautiful in our own way. We all are. And we have to remember that, especially when somebody is um, rejecting us or we're having a perceived rejection. So that's another way you know you're a hostage. Another way you know you're a hostage to love is when somebody's treating you poorly and that withholder is pulling away, and then somebody else becomes the clinger. Maybe even you do that, where then somebody's taking away their love. They're treating you poorly. They're not returning your phone calls. They haven't texted you back in 3 days, and you're up on pins and needles wondering what's wrong with you, why they haven't come back around, why they aren't interested in you, and then what do? You start texting them and stalking them and going through their pictures and seeing when they were out and who they were with and what they've done and what's going on with them and how can they be out happy and aren't they thinking of you and aren't they even concerned about your pain or what you're going through? And you cling to that person. You cling to the person that is hurting you instead of realizing, "Oh my God, they haven't texted me in 3 days." Instead of, what you're thinking as a toxic hostage to love, you're thinking, "What's wrong with me and how can I get them to notice me? How can I get them to want me? How can I get them to wanna be with me?" Versus thinking to yourself, "Thank God they did me a favor and a solid. This person hasn't texted me in 3 days. This person's kind of an asshole." But why don't we immediately think it's about them and not about us? Why do we internalize other people's bad behavior and cling to the people that are hurting us? Because we learned that pattern very early in our lives in childhood. That mom is hurting us, she's calling us names, she's being mean, she's rejecting us or neglecting us or hurting us, but I still have to love her because that's my mom. Dad's drunk, dad's spiraling out of control, but you know what? A good person loves their dad no matter what. So I've got to learn how to love the people that are hurting me. And that's the pattern that you start to run, that hostage situation. You don't need to learn to love better the people that are hurting you by clinging to them and watch it, especially people that are in relationships with addicts or alcoholics. You know they're hurting you on a regular basis. They're ripping you apart. They're gutting you psychologically and emotionally and physically and sometimes financially and spiritually. And you're thinking, "How can I love them better?" I want you to meditate on that for a minute, okay? It's not your job to learn to love better the people who are crucifying you and hurting you, even though religiously you think that's been the message and the teachings that have been passed down. You got to learn to love the people that are crucifying you. That is not your job. That's God's job. And you're not God. Well, we all are God, right? You're God, I'm God, we're all God, right? But it's not your job to learn to love the people that are crucifying you. It's the people that are crucifying you, their job to learn how to love themselves so they stop crucifying you. Love yourself as you love your neighbor. Okay. It's not your job to learn how to love people that are hurting you. It's the person that's hurting you's job to learn how to love themselves so they can stop hurting you because you only love other people to the level you love yourself. You can't, I'm going to say this 5 different ways. You cannot love somebody enough to have them stop hurting you. It doesn't matter how hard you try. Well, I'm going to love them enough, and that's going to be the ticket to having them stop hurting me. I'm going to show up for them enough. I'm going to love them enough. I'm going to be there for them enough, and then suddenly they're going to go, "Ah, you love me so much. I want to stop hurting you." That will never happen because the only resolution for somebody to stop hurting you is for them to learn how to love themselves first so they stop hurting you because you can only love another human being to the level you love yourself. It's an inside job. It's not your job to love them sober. It's their job to love themselves sober. It's not your job to love themselves so they stop hurting you. It's their job to learn how to love themselves so they stop hurting you. Not even love you so they stop hurting you. They can't even start to learn to love you until they start learning how to love themselves. How many different ways can I say that? That is a lesson that if we learn, it will change our lives forever on a transformational, substantial, meta, deep down, a level that will stay with you forever for the end of time. Oh, you know that to be true intellectually. Oh, they can't, people only love the others and how they love themselves. You know that, but then you get into relationships with people who are hurting themselves, killing themselves psychologically, emotionally, mentally on purpose or by accident, and then you expect them to love you. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay. So let's first make it the prerequisite that we're only going to love people who already love themselves, not in a selfish way, not in an egotistical way, but in a way that says, I love myself so much that I stop. How do you know somebody loves themselves? If you look at somebody and you go, do they love themselves? Are this going to be a healthy person for me? The answer is this. Are they aware enough? Do they love themselves enough to stop hurting themselves on purpose or by accident? And if you can answer that question, yes, this person looks like somebody who doesn't actively hurt themselves on purpose or on accident, then that's a pretty good indicator that they're not going to hurt you on purpose or in accident. Okay. And this is like life changing information today. Uh, I really believe so. I know it's changed my life. I used to pray for people in my life just to get it. You know, I'd be kind enough or sweet enough or whatever enough so they'd stop hurting me. And that just they never that day never came. That day never came. I actually wrote a book about it. It's called What's Wrong with Me. You can find this book on Amazon, and it's a story about a child that grows up in an addicted, abusive household, and how it's actually a picture book. It is a you can't really see it on the camera, but it's a book, a children's book for adults, for people who grew up in addiction, dysfunction, or abuse to recognize and see how these patterns have affected them and impacted them throughout their lives in the simplest way possible. And why a children's book for adults? Why why did I decide to do it this way? Because we've lost our inner child and we forget how we can impact it. In another episode, I'll read it. And you can find this book on here on my YouTube channel, Addiction and Relationships with Heidi Rain. You can find this book on Amazon, What's Wrong with Me by Heidi Rain. And so I don't remember what I was saying now because I interrupted my train of thought with the book. But let's move on to the next thing and maybe it'll come back to me. Thank you, perimenopause, for these wonderful lapses in memory. Love it. Isn't it awesome? Where are my perimenopause sisters at? Okay, so you learn how to love somebody who's hurt you. We've got to unlearn that. We've got to learn how to love ourselves so that we can love other people. Another thing that you notice a pattern, you know, you're a hostage to love, and this is like the last. What one of the second to the last patterns is if you feel like you have to be perfect in order to be loved. And this is really a tough one because it's not just other people's perfectionism, right? Like it's not really an outside job that other people are doing to you. Like they're expecting you to be perfect. This is really an internal hostage, love hostage situation. This is one you do to yourself. You hold yourself hostage in this way where I can't be loved until I lose those 50 pounds. I can't be loved until I make enough money. I can't be loved until I have something to offer another human being. I can't, in any way, shape, or form, whatever that is. Well, it's not about an acquisition. It's not that I can become so lovable by acquiring all these things that I could become rich enough or pretty enough or thin enough or successful enough or have enough surgery enough or whatever it is that we think, okay, I'm going to be perfect enough and now I'm going to be lovable. It's not an outside acquisition, it's an internal unleashing. It's knowing that you're already perfection, not on the outside, not you, not your ego. Your ego will never be perfect. You will never be perfect enough if that is the measurement, right? Of the money, of the status, of the airplanes, of the vacations, of the Instagram pictures, of all of that. You'll those metrics will never get you worthy of love ever, because there'll always be somebody richer, there'll always be somebody better, there's always somebody faster, there's always somebody more, farther along ahead of you. But internally, to know that we all come from the same thing. We're all the same God with substance. We're all already enough just the way that we are. If we don't learn how to cultivate that, we'll forever be a hostage to somebody else's external measure, especially your own internal measure. So the truth is, you're absolutely lovable just because you're breathing and born and worthy of, a tree doesn't beg for the wind. A tree doesn't beg for the rain. A tree doesn't beg for the sunshine. There's some ugly trees, all right? There's some trees that look kinda strange, right? There's some trees that are little shrubs and some that are very tall and beautiful oak trees, and but no flowers beg for sunshine. Flowers don't beg for the rain. They don't morph and bend and to become who they need to be and be just right at the right angle for the rain to hit them. A flower is what it is and the rain comes. A tree is what it is and the sun provides, and those are measures of love, right? Provision, protection, and things like this that are naturally inherent in our universe that have nothing to do with how much money you make. So, but until we understand and cultivate that belief in ourselves, that our essence is our true identity, then we start worthy of love. It's not something that we have to get to. We begin worthy of love, and then everything else in our lives is a measure of pursuing and finding where we feel most lit up, loved, valued, and not tolerated, or trying to, do a dog and pony show to get to some point in our lives where we feel like we've made it and now we're worthy of it. My sister and I have this talk all the time. The first 50 years of our life was about struggle. It was about earning love, being who we needed to be in order to get that love. This is like my painting back here that I've made. If you can see, you might be listening to the podcast and not seeing this, but I painted this picture recently that has all of the lies that we are told when we grow up in an addictive household that talks about, don't feel your feelings, you're too much, dumb it down, be quiet, don't rock the boat, say yes when you mean no, don't trust people, follow the rules, love hurts, don't be selfish, all the things that we're taught. And my whole life has been a study in breaking these goddamn rules. It's been about getting back to the truth of who I am, that I don't have to be or do anything in order to just, you know, us, essentially be worthy of love just because um, I'm here. There is no contest to be able to earn anything. It is just, love is available to everybody. We just have to remove, like Rumi said, the barriers we've built against it. You don't have to earn it. It's not getting there. Our society sets us up for this lie that we go through these hoops. You make it to kindergarten, then first grade, then second grade, then third grade, now fourth grade, now fifth. Now you're there, skip third grade for whatever reason, but now you're there, right? But we're never really there, and we're never really enough, and it never really ends. And now I need two doctorate degrees, and now I need all these certifications, and now I need all these things, and it's just a racket. It's a racket. And so another way we're a hostage to love is that we're pretending. We're pretending to be somebody we're not. And then this was really popular for a long time, hostage to love. I'll tell you who they were. There were these men that were a real hostage to love, and women, but men back in the early 90s or 2000s had this back in my day, there was this whole thing with like uh, how to get a woman culture, where all these people were writing books about for women and men, how to catch them and keep them, get them to marry you in 90 days. The Millionaire Matchmaker was really big back in the day, where it was like, all these dating tips and advice on how to be the most lovable version of yourself or what have you. And men were taught all these techniques. Don't be the nice guys, like nice guy syndrome. Don't be a nice guy, be a dick, be an asshole. Here's the steps. Here's how phrases like learning how to peacock or neg, when a woman, give her a negative compliment so she feels like you trigger her insecurities and her inability, her deepest fear, and then you'll get her. It was like learning how to catfish emotionally and mentally with people by pretending to be somebody you weren't emotionally and mentally. It was the first catfish. And the truth is, there were a lot of really nice people, men who pretended to be assholes, and then the woman would be interested, and then they reverted back to their default nature, which is actually a nice human being. And then the woman would fault them for being too kind and being not attracted to them. And then they were told to man up again or toughen up again and be this other version. But the truth is, at the end of the day, what you really want in a man is their kindness. You want a man who treats the world with kindness and love and respect, who goes to people that don't matter that to him, that he can't get something from. How does he treat the people that he's not trying to get something from? How does he share his heart with the world? The kindness is what you're craving in a partner for life. Why in the fuck would you want somebody who's pretending to be an asshole? That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. A man, women are taught, play hard to get, be somebody else, be this person who like withholds her love and don't show any interest and, be aloof and whatever. And so a man, gets fired up because he can chase you around. But a man who's chasing you around is actually a man who's very insecure and is chasing you because now you're a conquest so he can prove his value. That's not a man who wants to be with you because he feels like he wants to add value to your life. He wants to come alongside of you. It's a man who's chasing you because he wants to add you to his catalog. He wants to add you to his assets because what you're going to give to him, that's a selfish person. I'm going to chase that because I want that person to acquire her to bring. So are you an acquisition or a human being? What are you? These are things that you really need to start thinking about when you're positioning yourself in the dating world. Do you want to be somebody to be acquired? Are you an acquisition? Are you an asset? You might be like, yes, queen, I'm an asset. Yes, honey, I'm an asset. Okay, well, understand assets depreciate sometimes. Okay, assets get sold, assets get bought and sold, assets get traded in, assets get, you know, okay, what are you? You're more than an asset. You're much, much more than an asset. An asset is a house, and houses are meant to be bought and sold. You're not a house, are you? You're not a car, are you? Car is more liability than an asset, depending on what kind of car you get. But anyway, same thing, right? Are you as valuable as a house? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Honey, you're much more than that. Much, much more than that. So stop acting like a commodity, but treating yourself like a commodity being bought and sold. Be authentically yourself. Be somebody that no matter you don't have to pretend at all to be somebody that you're not. If there's an element of pretending, then you're getting somebody on a false pretense. You're attracting somebody on a false pretense. I'm emotionally catfishing you. I'm going to pretend to be this person who's like hard to get, right? But I know I'm not hard to get. I know I'm a love bug just like you are, right? Then I get into this relationship with this person who I've had to play hard to get and had to play cat and mouse and James Bond maneuvers, to get. And now I really want to be myself and I really want to be with this person and I want to love them and I want to send them little love notes and I want to write to them how much I love them. And now all of a sudden they're turned off by these things and I'm smothering them. Uh-oh. How did that happen? Well, it happened because they don't want somebody who's actually really love bug and loving. They want somebody who makes them prove their value because they feel so fucking insecure. So the minute that you become your authentic self, which is a love bug, they want to pursue somebody else who doesn't like them that much so that they can feel fueled up. That's a love addict, right? That's somebody who needs to feel the rush of being chosen over and over and over again instead of just settling into this dynamic where I'm not going anywhere. That's a hostage situation. I only wanna be with you so long as you're making me feel a little bit inadequate so I can chase after you. The last dynamic where you're in a hostage situation is if you're trying to fix somebody and you're trying to rescue somebody, and you know that the only way you feel the only way that you can get love is if you're adding value to somebody's life by trying to make their life better. There's nothing wrong with coming to somebody's life and trying to add value to them. That's how it's supposed to be, right? We all want to be adding value. Everything in life adds value to something else, right? The sun adds value to the trees, and the trees adds value to the oxygen, to the air, and the air adds value to us, and everything's adding value to something. The honeybees, it's all a value system here for sure, but it's an equal value system. It is a value system that is interdependent, and one is not greater than the other. All of our pouring in is equal in value when you look down at the bare bones of it all, what we're giving one another. But in a toxic hostage situation, you're giving much, much more than you're receiving. And that's not the way nature is set up. It's really not. If you explore anything, everything gives in its own value, and it's all reciprocal. It's interdependent. There's a reciprocal nature to life, a give and a take, an ebb and a flow, and an in and an out, a coming and a going. And what happens is if you know you're a hostage is when you're giving and giving and giving, and there's no getting. It's very unbalanced. There's no balance in your life at all. And so you feel depleted. You often wonder who's going to be there for you? What's going to be there for you? How do you get somebody to pour into you the way you're pouring into somebody else? Or feel like a constant victim. And that is the victim fixer mentality, right? You're pouring, 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 and nobody's there for you, but now you're the victim. And now you're the fixer. You're going to pour, pour, pour into everybody else. And now you're the victim. Nobody's there for you. Nobody's taking care of you. And so, what's the solution to all this hostage situation? Is a liberation. The solution to the hostage situation that you're in, being a love hostage, playing all these games that we play, the 8 different games that we play, perfecting, pretending, performing, controlling, all these different games we play. The solution to it is a liberation. It's for you to untether from these patterns once and for all, to untether and understand, where did these patterns originate? Where did these patterns come from? How do they come about? And how do you systematically remove these patterns one tether at a time to reveal your authentic self? What would it be like to be able to just know you were lovable no matter what? To walk through life not having your love be dependent upon the feedback of the outside world? What would that be like? Well, it's very liberating because you actually get to be more of who you are. And then you get to discover, the more of who I am, the more I am myself, the more I actually have to give that's unique, that's different than what other people are given. When you're in this game of the Joneses and this pretending and performing, you're really just serving what everybody else is serving. An Instagram post on a private plane, a nice meal in Vegas, a trip to Paris. I mean, I don't know. You're serving what everybody else is serving. There's so much more to you than that. There's so much more to you than a pretty Instagram picture. There's so much more to you than that. What's inside of you that wants to come out, that's so afraid to unleash because you think nobody else is unleashing this thing? Nobody else is really doing it this way. That's the whole freaking point. Great that nobody else is doing it that way. Of all the paths so that you could take, choose the path less taken, right? Walk down the path, create the path, be the path. Everybody in the world has their own unique Tao. Tao is the way. Jesus said, I am the way. The Tao is the way of life, the way of showing up, the way of shining, the way of being the flower, the way of being the tree. What type of tree are you? If you're always trying to be like everybody else's tree or everybody else's idea of how they're expecting you to behave or be, you'll never fully get to experience the beauty of all of who you truly are meant to be and become. If you're trying to be like everybody else, okay? You are settling if you're trying to do that. And you're certainly settling if you're in one of these hostage situations. Outside of pretending and performing and perfecting and controlling is true liberation. It's allowing other people to be who they are instead of who you need them to be for you. And it's allowing yourself to be who you are instead of who you feel like you need to be for other people, and just showing up and seeing what happens, showing up authentically as yourself and just letting the chips fall where they may. Okay. I love you so much. I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, please share it or like it. God knows these platforms are humongous. When you like a video or you leave a review of the podcast or anything you can do, helps us help more people because it helps us get the message out and be seen. And so I encourage you to share. Okay. Or leave a comment to help us help more people. If you want to support us, you can go over to HeidiRain.com, have a look at our programs, or schedule a consultation. If you want to reach out to me personally and talk about me mentoring you or coming alongside of you, you can certainly send me an email right from my site at HeidiRain.com. And we can talk about mentorship or how I can help you let loose of some of these paradigm shifts or come to your more authentic self. And I'm happy to come alongside of you and be with you on this journey. Okay. I love you so much. I want you to take excellent care of yourself. And I'm wishing for you what I'm always wishing for all of us, which is just to be exactly who you were born to be. Born to be. All right. I love you so much. Bye.